Hello, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden, and this is my lab, Shifting Perspectives. So I am, first and foremost, a scientist, and second, an artist. However, I will be the first to tell you that scientists are really prejudiced against spirituality and faith, and spiritualists are really prejudiced against science. And if you've learned anything from the perspectives, it's indulgence, avoidance, integration. So I am huge on the integration of both. There's a lot of second perspective jargon, and then there's the real shit. And then there's the real shit with a whole lot of unnecessary illogical ornamentation on it. And then there's the physics and the science to back up the real shit. So when I see something like twin flame, I go, okay, the twin flame is legit. I can see the science there. I can also see where the second perspective, spiritual, religious stuff is starting to seep in and get carried away with it because there's no logic to keep it in check. Likewise, I can see where there's no physics or anything to back it up because the scientists are snubbing their nose at it. Meanwhile, there's a lot of illogical hypotheses based off of a lot of unorganized feelings that are ill-defined with really poor, sloppy logic on the front of the spiritualists. So when I look into twin flames, I can see where the twin flame is highly logical and very supportive of the science. And I'm going to break that down in this video. And I can also see there's a lot of narcissistic romantic love wrapped around the concept of the twin flame, which has been blown way out of proportion. And I can see there's a lot of emotional prosthetic where a lot of people who seek that perfect ideal love clings to the concept of twin flame and have embellished it with bullshit. And I can see where there's a lot of people who are completely ignorant of science trying to do science, and I'm going, yeah. So this is me stripping all the bullshit away and just looking at twin flame and then taking the science, the physics, and my psychology and plugging it in. The first thing I want to address is all the variations of twin flame, the soulmate, and there's one other thing, karma. That's the bullshit. That's the bullshit. The twin flame's legit. Soulmate, that really reeks of the narcissism. That really reeks of narcissistic romantic love. That's toxic codependency, throwing that over there. And every variation I've heard of soulmates, and I've looked into it, keeps coming back to, okay, that's romanticized narcissism. Throw it over there. Now, the flip side of all of that, the karma flame, the karma soulmate, I think there's a simpler version. I don't know. Technically, I can identify the karma flame with my situation. And I'm just one situation where I can go, oh, isn't that interesting? So I can't quickly go, that's bullshit, because I can see mine. I can identify mine. And I'm going, okay. So this element is accurate to what's being said, but the description and the breakdown of it. So I'm going to go over this, what the twin flame is. When you look at how we learn, how we do anything, it's the indulgence, and then we become overwhelmed with the indulgence. We flip over to the avoidance, and then we learn how to integrate. And this is how we do everything. This is the first perspective, the second perspective, the third perspective. And this is the perspectives that go on repeat. It's your indulge, and then it's your avoid, and then it is your integration. And when we learn, we get stuck in the avoidance. When we're traumatized, we get stuck in avoidance. And we never integrate because we have trauma associated with the indulgence part. So we were indulged in trauma X, we used avoidance, and then we get stuck. That's how stalling out happens in our educational system. Now, with the twin flame, you indulge, you avoid, and then you integrate. And that's really it. No other relationship does this. You indulge, you avoid, and you integrate. Now, the reason why the twin flame is slightly different is because no one survives the avoidance stage. That's why. That's why. All relationships do this. They indulge, and then they fall apart. They indulge, or they're codependent. And that's it, really. They indulge and they're codependent, and then they become toxic, or they indulge and then they avoid and they fall apart. The twin flame is the one that indulges, avoids, and lasts because it's true love. And then when they come back together again, they've integrated. They've understood that, oh, we can't indulge. Oh, and the avoidance was hell, so let's integrate this. Now, flipping this around slightly, with the twin flame, you also inspire, you activate, and inspire the other to heal. In an indulgence codependent relationship, no, that doesn't happen. That is your narcissistic, nurturing, toxic relationship, which a lot of people are in. And codependents like to think romantically that they are in a twin flame when in fact they're codependents because they're not inspiring the healing. You really need to look for that inspiration of healing. If they're not inspiring each other to heal, you are either A, in an emotional prosthetic, or B, same thing, you are in a codependent relationship. The only way to determine if you actually have true love is if you go through the avoidance stage and you come back. Bottom line. You have to go through the avoidance stage and you have to come back from it. But when you come back from it, you both have healed and you've integrated. Literally like a rubber band, you might say. And that's exactly it. Now, if you take a look at the physics of all of this, pendulum swinging. For every reaction, there is an opposite and equal reaction. In this case, the indulgent is the first action. The reaction, opposite and equal, is avoidant. So you are going to get as much avoidant equal to how much you indulged on each other. So if you indulged X, well, then you're going to get avoid X. And bottom line, forever how much you indulged, you avoid. Now, this is true no matter what. This is true if you are in a codependent relationship, if you are in a toxic relationship, if you are in a twin flame relationship. But the difference is, if it's true love, it survives the avoidance. And that's really all it is. That's what it boils down to. It outlasts it because love endures all. And that's love. Love endures all. That it can handle the avoidance. This is true of any love. Love can handle avoidance. Love can survive and endure through absence. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder. No, I don't believe that. I don't know. I believe that absence does not affect love. Absence does not affect love. I don't think it nurtures it. I don't think absence nurtures it at all. One could argue that it's a pining. Now, in the case of the twin flame, one of the other characteristics that comes up a lot is the chaser. One of them is always a chaser, the other is always the avoider. And this is the ironic part. What's being described in that circumstance is 100% an anxious attachment style and an avoidant attachment style. Now, I could turn around and argue very solidly, well, that's codependency. But codependency is when the anxious and the avoidant actually feed each other's energy, which is true, which also happens in case of anxious avoidant. is the avoidant usually plays the superhero while the anxious plays the damsel in distress, the narcissist, borderline personality disorder. So then the avoidant takes care of the anxious until the avoidant just can't do it anymore and then runs. So that's just more narcissism. That's just more toxic romance, codependency, emotional prosthetic. Now, the twin flame though, and here's the kicker, we're right back to this again, is it a parasitic relationship or is it a healing relationship? When the two of them come together and they inspire the healing of the other, that's really the key factor. If you are not inspiring, if there is deterioration happening on both ends, you're in a toxic relationship. If you are seeing improvement, then the improvement of one in a twin flame is the catalyst for inciting the healing of the other. The other thing is, prior to them coming together, the one that was inspired to heal from the healing of the other never healed. It was stagnant. So you could see decades of not healing. The two of them come together. The non-healer inspires the healing of this person, which inspires the healing of this person, which would not have taken place had they come together. So that is another thing to look for. That basically means that they are mirroring their healing, their positivity. Whereas in the case of a parasitic codependent, what they're mirroring is the toxicity. And that's when it just falls apart. But if they're hearing the healing, if they're mirroring the healing, it's a completely different dynamic. And then you have the avoidant who withdraws and the anxious chases. And the tables turn. That's when you get into a power control, authority establishment. And that is really how a power, authority, and control is exchanged in the codependent relationship. What's going on there is surrendered, no. It is fond vulnerability. It is fond vulnerability to attract through deceit. That is the power exchange. So the damsel in distress or the underdog, the victim, the narcissist, fawns vulnerability when in fact they maintain authority, power without submission, even though they look like they've submitted. Meanwhile, the one who's nurturing the damsel or the underdog is actually being drained of power. So through deceit, the damsel is actually non-consensually taking power from the superhero role, the avoidant. See, the avoidant is literally non-consensually unaware feeding a parasite. That is the power exchange that's happening in a codependent relationship and in an emotional prosthetic. Toxic. It is very much a parasitic relationship. Now, in the case of the twin flame, things are different. In the case of the twin flame, if it's actually based off of real love, the love stands no matter what. The love does not change. The love and the value are constants. That's really the difference. But there's one more thing. The codependent can still exist in a twin flame situation. The emotional prosthetic can still exist in that situation. However, when you prioritize love above the toxicity, then the damsel or the underdog will heal and their healing will ignite the other's healing. And when the healing happens, the authority, power, control shifts. The authority then literally, they're no longer fawning vulnerability. They're actually embracing true vulnerability. Now, only in true vulnerability can human connection actually exist. So you have true vulnerability. And when you have true vulnerability, that is when you gift your power over. Now, that power is then transferred over to the avoidant. And the avoidant, who is now ignited to heal, accepts the power, and now they are in a position of authority. And that is when the chase ends. That's what breaks the chase, is the surrendering of power. Chasing is actually, if you look at the emotional transaction, chasing a partner is actually non-consensual vulnerability. And when you realize that chasing somebody is non-consensual vulnerability, if you love them, you will immediately surrender this when you realize this. If you don't love them, you'll just move on, which is the difference between the twin flame and everybody else. Is the twin flame, they truly do love. So that when this part of the healing hits and the ethic is learned, and they realize that chasing somebody is actually non-consensual vulnerability, it's forcing them into a relationship, the immediate response is, oh, I love you, I value, I prioritize love over possession. That's really what's going on here. Is in your traditional relationship, it's possession over love. That's what jealousy is. That's what monogamy is. It's possession over love. And then when you flip over, when you look into a symbiotic codependent relationship, it's possession over love. When you look at the soulmate, it's possession over love. But in the twin flame, it might start off as possession over love, but because of the healing ignited, it switches over to love over possession. And when that happens, that's when you go through the indulge, and then you go in avoidant, and then you integrate. But in order to shift from avoid to integrate, the energy has to switch from prioritizing possession over love. Now, in order to prioritize love over possession, you have to risk. This is where you set the bird free, and if they love you, they come back. That's this exactly. Is you have to risk the loss in order to test their love. But it's not testing their love. That's psychological manipulation from the narcissist side. You will never know, you'll never get confirmation if you don't set them free. And it's very much that risk. But when you do that, you shift the authority, the power from yourself over to them. You say, I don't need to possess or control you anymore. You surrender all control by laying yourself down to be submissive and vulnerable to them at the risk of losing them in a state of avoidance. Now it's 100% up to them to come back if they so choose. But now they have the full power. And when you've done this, you've healed. And according to the true twin flame lore, they also are in a state of healing, so that when they are done healing and they love you truly, that authority shift will have occurred so that the possession is gone, the love is there, and they'll come back. Because again, that's how we learn: indulge, avoid, integrate. So that's what's going on in the case of the twin flame. As far as the physics of it, that is, again, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, which is why they run, which is why you clean and then you pull. But if they're healthy, they swing back. So there's literally a back and a forth. But it's always, and this is how we learn everything, is indulge, avoid, integrate. And then we learn this cycle, this balance. This is karma. This is balance. This is yin and yang. This is how you integrate it into your life. So when there's talk about twin flames, that's actually what they are referring to, is that balance of moderation, everything in moderation. And in the case of the codependent and the narcissist lover and soulmates, you don't have moderation. We see this a lot with our love culture today, where you have a husband and a wife and they indulge and they are with each other 24/7. There's no moderation. And that is your codependent relationship. It's very parasitic. They can't comprehend being away from each other. And then we narcissistically romanticize it and label it as all these beautiful things because they're in love, when in fact it's infatuation, fear-based, emotional, prosthetic, and parasitic. We glorify codependency in our culture. It's disgusting, especially between mother and children. Oh, we reward our mothers for their codependency. It's disgusting. And when you start to realize that healthy love, wisdom love, is actually moderation, it's a balance of both the indulge and then the avoidance, and understanding that if you don't moderate, you're going to have those two extremes. Whereas the alternative, what's commonly practiced, is complete indulgence to the point of possessiveness, clinginess, jealousy, monogamy, and enslavement in many cases. So if you're looking for a healthy love, it's absolutely adopting this concept of you need to prioritize the love and freedom over possession. This is where there's a lot of people leading toward polygamy and polyamory, because it is the full embrace of love and freedom with a lack of possessiveness. And we see more and more a decline of jealousy among those groups because they're seeking a moderation. Now, ironically, flipping that around, I've also seen a lot of polyamory people who use polyamory in a sense of, I'm going to hoard all of these lovers, which is the scarcity mindset. So I've seen people where it's either quite the opposite, where it's scarcity mindset, let's hoard all of the lovers, so I'll have all of my needs met, somebody for every one of my needs. No one should be using it. That's emotional prosthetic. No one should be taking care of any of your needs. And the flip side of that is monogamy, where it's hoarding all of your possessiveness and prioritizing the possessiveness and ownership over love. I have a serious problem with the concept of cheating, because cheating only exists in a state where you own the individual. Bottom line. It's like saying, I own my cat, no one's allowed to pet my cat. And that's possessiveness is absolutely hand in hand with cheating. For anybody who's and then there's the, well, yeah, but we agreed on it. Okay, so you've agreed on terms of enslavement. Still slavery. If you agree on terms of enslavement, then you are actually agreeing to nurture your codependency. You are agreeing to nurture this parasitic emotional prosthetic. And it was really an extraordinary journey I went through over the concept of love and freedom. For the longest time, I thought, okay, I can't have love and freedom. They're incompatible. So every time I fell in love, I felt my freedom being taken away. And I had to choose between love or freedom. But there's this other concept where it proposes love and freedom. And that's a whole nother level of, and that's really it. This is the evolution of partnership. There's no love, possessiveness, and no freedom. And then there's the, okay, I love you, but I don't trust, and I have a significant problem with my emotional resources, so I'm going to use you as an emotional prosthetic. And because you have the same insecurity as I do, then let's agree that we will both be monogamous to cater to our insecurity. And then there is the, well, I have to choose love or freedom. Dean Winchester comes into mind right there. That's really got him written all over it, love or freedom. And then there is the final stage, which is love and freedom. Now, I believe there is another one after that, which is where I am. And it is love and freedom, but it's a weird state where I live in. It's love and freedom. I am polyamorous, but I have no desire or interest in anyone except my one partner. Because why settle for anything less than the best? And he's the best for me, so why would I feel like I'm just not it's like, why would I eat at McDonald's when I can have a five-star restaurant every night? And I have yet to see anyone who matches that quality, and it's like, why would I go for anything less than the best quality? So, that's where I'm at with and there's another couple who are that like that also. They're polyamorous, they believe in love and freedom, and they've also they're monogamous. They're practiced monogamous, but not because they're monogamous. It's because they don't want anything else. It's like it's your identity. It's when your identity chooses monogamy, not your fear system. And that's really it. Your fear system chooses monogamy. Is your fear system choosing monogamy or is your identity choosing monogamy? And that's the question. You have to pass through all of these to know, oh, it's totally my fear system choosing it. When you get to love and freedom, that's when your fear system is gone and identity just hasn't chosen. And I thought that was it, was love and freedom. And this is where I had a lot of confusion. I went through a period where, well, I'm polyamorous. I'm supposed to, and there's that supposed to again, that's expectation. I'm supposed to have multiple people. But there was just no desire at all. And no matter how I ran the logic loop through, no matter how much I wrote up the proof and calculated it out, it kept coming back to why? Like, and that's when I realized there's love and freedom. But then after love and freedom, there is when identity doesn't want it. Am I free for her to do what she wants? Yeah, identity is 100% free and she still chooses. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, going back on the twin flame thing. There's a lot of lore written about it, but really, if I were to break it down, and these are the words, this is where that's the physics. This is how it works for the physics. But then, and this is the thing that really just there's these societal words that people use like breakup and things like that. And it's not, and here's the thing. With the avoidant, it's not a breakup. The words are the societal words are I understand. There's the societal words. There's the energy words. And then there is the physics. So there's the concept of twin flame. And then there's the traditional relationship model. And then there is the physics with the twin flame of the Newton's third law, which makes a lot of sense, and which also corresponds with the third law. Isn't that funny? The third law of ethics. I did not realize they were parallel. So also the third law of ethics, which corresponds with Newton's third law for the twin flame. Now flipping over to the energy, what it feels like is I have my frequency and he has his frequency, and they are matched frequencies. We have matched frequencies. And these frequencies are energy. The frequency vibrating, matched energy. Energy is frequency. It's how fast the energy moves. Yeah, it's frequency is energy. And then my energy has known him for a long time. The way I explain it, it feels like I've known him forever, but we're 4 years old. And we're ancient. All at the same time. That's what it feels like. It feels like I've known him forever, we're 4 years old and we're ancient together, all at the same time. That's what it feels like. And we are. We just are. So there is no, are we together? Are we apart? Are we broken up? We just are. And right now, he is on walkabout and he's healing and he's figuring out the shit. And I'm not waiting. We are. Waiting is a societal concept of moving on. And it's, no, we are. So it's a different, it's, if I were to talk about energy, it's a state of being. Energy can either be destroyed or changed. Energy is the ability to do work. The ability to do work. Define work. That is a horrible definition. Oh, thank you. Okay. Activity. Oh, that's so much better. In ancient Greek, energy literally is synonymous with activity. Is a quantitative property that is transferred to a body or to a physical system, recognizable in the performance of work and in the form of heat and light. Energy is a conserved quantity. The law of conservation of energy states that, conservation of energy, our subconscious mind runs off of that. Conservation of energy states that energy can be converted in form, but not created or destroyed. It's converted. This is actually not defining it. It defines what it can do, but it's not defining what it is. It's defining the symptoms of, but it's not defining what it is. It can be measured, but it's still not defining what it is. Energy is not defined. Interesting. It's just saying what it can do. We can see the results of it, but we still have not defined energy. Energy is the force I'm going to leave it there. It's the force. Energy is the force. It is the force that flows, converts, fuels, passes, shifts, and shapes itself in and around everything. Energy is the force that flows, converts, fuels, passes, shifts, and shapes itself in and around everything. Emotional energy. Frequency is the rate at which energy moves. Frequency is just the rate. Yeah, frequency is the rate. Frequency is the rate in which energy moves. There. Yeah. It's really hard taking your words and keeping them as consequence. The feeling comes first always. You observe the situation and then you define it. And that is the hardest thing to learn as a human being. That is the hardest thing to learn as a human being. You feel it, you observe it, and then you define it. And we forget this so much. We start off with the words, and then we fit the feeling around the definition, and then we force actions to occur to the defined. This is how we do everything, and it's why we're fucked up, is because we'll define relationship, and instead of observing the situation, we will take everything in the relationship and force it to conform into an expectation of a definition. And we do this so regularly that we are oblivious to the realization of what we're supposed to be doing, that you're supposed to feel it and then observe it and then define it yourself. Maybe you author it. You author it. You feel it, you observe it, you author it. And you're supposed to author it based off of what you want, so that you're not conforming the feeling and the no word should ever be the master of any action. No word should ever be the master of any action. That is yeah. Thank you so much for your audience, and may the kindest of words always find you.